So now we move to our last presenter, Dr. Johannes Cullmann, Director of Water and Cryosphere at the World Meteorological Organization. Dr. Johannes is also the former UNESCO Water President, and he has significantly contributed to the design of its water programs. Dr. Johannes holds a PhD in hydrology from TU Dresden and Germany. Dr. Johannes is going to give us a speech today on water, climate, and adaptation options to minimize damage. Please, Dr. Johannes.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me to the talk. Hello, everybody. I want to present now in a brief manner some of the arguments that my predecessors in this session have given, and I want to really focus on 2 or 3 key aspects that are needed to successfully adapt to climate change and to mitigate risks that we face in this process. So I think much has been said by really all the speakers. We have seen Ari's very technical presentation on one aspect of the solution for water problems in the region, the possible solution. But I think I want to first take one step back. I think especially for arid regions, there are 3 very big challenges if we think about future development. And future developments are a combination really of population dynamics, economic development, and climate change. So for me, those 3 things are A, the sea level rise, and we have heard in the first talk, and also we know that, of course, our Dutch colleagues, the water envoy, are very much involved with the delta question. So sea level rise will impact especially on those arid countries that are depending on agriculture and delta areas. So I think to adapt to sea level rise, we need 2 things. A, we probably need to develop a much more flexible approach for future building codes. I don't think that a new line or a new prescriptive building code or development code will resolve the problem, because we don't really know how high the sea level will rise. We know from our past experience that with similar CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere, we had, and that's a couple million years ago, something like 12 to 15 meters higher sea level. So we don't know if we will come to that equilibrium again or how long that will take, but surely we need to be much more flexible and adaptive in programming development in coastal zones. Second is the ocean acidification. As we produce CO2, a part of that gets absorbed by the oceans and contributes to ocean acidification. And we don't really know yet how this will impact on the food chains, especially on the shelf, so on the near coast, and bioproductivity of the oceans. But especially in dry countries like Somalia or any other coastal country in Africa that's very dry, many people depend on near-shore fisheries. So that's a big argument that is often overlooked, and we will not be able to just, provide cucumbers or tomatoes for these people, because that's a very water-intensive food commodity. So we need to really think about all these people who are living off the seas near the shores. And the third big complex that we need to think about is the precipitation distribution over land. And we have seen some examples of what we believe will be future changes in precipitation distributions over land. We know temperature will increase. We know demand will rise because of the temperature, because of population development. And we know that we will get maybe equal precipitation over large parts of Africa, maybe a bit more even. Some studies allude to that, but we know it will come in more extremes. Ari has very nicely shown that. I have read a study of the Australian National University from this year where for Western Southern Africa, they have concluded from the compared models, coupled model intercomparison project, 6th phase, that probably the drought in Western Southern Africa will likely be by 2 to 4 months longer at the end of this century. So the drought problem is really the one that is, I think, most looming in the future. Floods are, of course, a very media prone disaster that we face, but the real issue will be the droughts and how we provide water for regions during increased and prolonged drought periods. And of course, most of the water in arid countries is used for agriculture. So it is not very astonishing that, to me, the big question that we need to resolve is how do we provide an optimized solution for the equation that determines sustainable development, which has as parameters the water demand, the water availability, and the water storage. So for the water demand, we need better water accounting systems. And I have seen last year when I was in Cairo, I've seen the Egyptian efforts to account better for water. I think those are very commendable, and we need that on a regional basis because we need to know where the water goes. We also need better monitoring systems that I think in all of the presentations that I've heard today, this was a big issue. So better water monitoring systems that are not just snapshots on solutions, but that allow us to actually get baseline data on water availability is a must. And we need a regional storage strategy, I think, and this must include big dams like the GERD, but must also include other possibilities for storing water in vegetation, in smaller infrastructure, in the soil. And I think this is the big missing link yet in many regions. I know that ESQA is trying to help. The UN has now come up with a water and climate coalition. It is a little bit like the Water and Climate Initiative, and that we have heard from Mohammed at the beginning of this session. So for now, 10 UN agency heads have come together to say, okay, we need better data and information for managing water in the climate change context. And of course, the focus is on those areas where it is already most arid at the moment. So this coalition will be opened to countries in the coming 1 or 2 months. And it really aims at improving the monitoring system, at bringing together all the different data and analysis systems that are around, on supporting countries in their future water availability estimation. So we want to know how much will the precipitation change where, and we want to improve these scientific aspects of estimating that. So that's a lot to do with the Cortex, so with coordinated downscaling of climate models, with model intercomparison projects, and with just providing better estimations for how much water will be where and when. And we have in WMO had two a bit eye-opening, maybe not totally unexpected, but still very impressive feedbacks from our members in the past couple of months. One is we had a big survey amongst our 193 member states, and it shows up that two of the biggest problems are really adequate staffing in the adequate administrations. So, and this is not only a developing country problem, but also, to my surprise, a problem of the developed countries. So also developed countries in arid regions have a problem to staff their services in an adequate manner. That is one thing we need to address. We know that 60% of our members don't have adequate flood or drought warning or early warning capabilities. So that's already bad now, and it will be more important in the future. And we also know that more than 50% of our members have a problem with national or institutional data policies. So even if we wanted to share all the data on a regional level, very often national data policies impede us to develop, I don't know, a regional treaty or a regional water monitoring system. And this is not a technical problem. It's not a scientific problem, but it's a problem of political will. And I think we must be very clear and outspoken about this, because it is something that only few people can really resolve, and these few people need to come together and need to be courageous and need to maybe address one or two taboos. But there's also a very big chance in really changing something in the policy arena and in the political agenda, because if we can go away from the siloed approach that we have at the moment with national adaptation planning or national water resources strategies to regional plannings, and Ari has shown that in his presentation, we can not only in a zero-sum game share the benefit of the water resources, but we can actually increase the benefits that are related to the use of water in energy, in transportation, in agriculture. And I think this is what we need to do. So I really would like to call upon the political leaders to open their eyes and to go away from a protective and national, confined to the national boundaries development path, because this will not resolve the problem that we have with population growth, with climate change, and economic development. So that's in short my summary, and I am very happy to stay with you for another 10 minutes maybe. And also, if anybody wants further information on what this Water and Climate Coalition is doing, then please don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Dr. Johannes. Dr. Johannes spoke about adaptation options and how to adapt to sea level rise and the need for flexible phased approach in the light of the uncertainty that we have in climate change projections, and also the need for accounting and monitoring systems. And also informed us about the coalition of 10 UN agencies to improve the data unavailability issue. I thank all the panelists. And now we move into our question and answers session. We have a number of questions in the question and answer section. I will start with the first question for Dr. Rami about Egypt leading the collection of data in the region, and also securing the finance from donors like the World Bank. Dr. Rami, please. Can you please unmute yourself, Dr. Rami?
Well, Egypt actually doing a lot of work, a lot of effort regarding that, even the financing this from the government. Like from last century, they started the first actually data collection, data monitoring for the Nile Basin, and they're having this in very precious post-world Nile Basin volumes. I don't think the World Bank or the other funding agency need to proceed from Egypt, because I was involved in different projects like the Buena project that was in 2011 and 2013, and that was including all the North Africa countries and Senegal and Mali, and also other projects from the World Bank. And the problem always is upper stream countries, they reluctant to share their information. So it's not problem of financing, it's problem of cooperating, it's a problem of understanding this is going to be win-win situation for sharing the information. So actually, is doing a lot of effort regarding that, and I don't think any national agency or funding energy will need to pursue it for regional project regarding data sharing and data protection. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Rami. Second question, I think it's probably for Aris. The question is, in the context of climate change and water security, what would be the potential of GERD on the water availability and water supply in Egypt?
Yes. So I mentioned, So I mentioned that the GRD can have a very significant impact during drought. When we don't have a drought and the river actually produces a lot of flow, then everybody can do what they need. There's no significant need to worry about. But when the droughts begin to affect the region, then I think there has to be an agreement, a sliding scale as to what kind of withdrawals can happen. Not only in Egypt. Egypt also has to curtail a bit the amount of because the system has a capacity and envelope to meet everybody's demands. The benefit of GRD for Egypt, I think, it is during drought. We have shown that if the GRD is operated in a way that actually is concerned also and supports the downstream interest, it can cut in half the drought deficits that Egypt would experience without it. So you see, if you do an assessment with the GRD and without it, Egypt is going to face, given the increase of the demands and the withdrawals in the river already and the evaporation rates, it's going to experience deficits anyway, which is something they have to address on their own, at the national level. But what I'm saying is that if the GRD is there and there's cooperation strategy between the two countries, then this deficit that they would experience will actually be reduced, and therefore is a benefit for Egypt. The rest of the time, when the river has enough flow, it doesn't really matter. The other implicit aspect in what you're asking me is that the countries have to agree on what are the targets that of withdrawals and usage of water. Because you see, what happens is as the climate begins to warm up, the factor that is going to consume a lot of the water is the crops, the irrigation of the crops. The soil moisture is going to go down. The evapotranspiration rate is going to go up, and to produce the same amount of yield, you will need to irrigate more. So even if the acreage is the same, the climate is going to actually have a surcharge in terms of the irrigation demand. So the question is, all of that stuff for a system that is actually barely balances itself on the long term, need to be addressed. And so, how much of an increase are we talking about with respect to the irrigation of crops? And so on, it has to be quantified and addressed. Tools exist. We actually have them. We have produced all sorts of tools for the agricultural sector, for the energy sector, for the water supply sector. So the science is there, but it has to be made available to the negotiators and to the countries. Together, they need to appreciate, internalize, and figure out how to handle this, and figure out how to reduce the withdrawals and how to do without the full amount and the full target they need during droughts. Until the drought goes away, the dams get full again, and people can go back to the initial consumptive usage.
Okay, thanks so much, Aris. Next question is for Tessa. Once Tessa is answering the question, Amr, please could you share the last slide of Tessa's presentation, because a number of participants would like to get her contact details. So the question, Tessa, is how the young professionals can apply and involve in your different activities.
Thanks. Thank you very much for that question. Well, you can either contact me, but it's actually better to follow the websites that I mentioned. I have a group on LinkedIn that is on the slide that Dr. Ahmar is looking for now, and yeah. So there's the LinkedIn group, Netherlands and Nina working together on water, energy, and food. Please become a member, because the different activities and timelines and ways to register or be part of this are going to be announced in that group. And apart from that, on the websites of the various initiatives that I mentioned. So either contact me or join the group, and I'm sure you'll be informed very well. And also the calls and connected initiatives will be announced on our embassy websites in the region. So the embassies in Jordan, Palestine, Egypt, etc. So you can also follow those. Thank you.
Another question, Tessa, you are popular today. So another question about the use of recycling wastewater, especially in agriculture. Can you elaborate on the soil acceptance of the use of wastewater and reuse in agriculture?
Actually, soil acceptance, I'm not an expert on. I know that it's
no, sorry, social acceptance.
Sorry, excellent. Yes, yes, indeed. I think that's an excellent question. The reason why we're so heavily involved in reuse of wastewater in agriculture in Jordan is that Jordan has a very forward-thinking, quite a progressive, I might say, policy. There's even been a fatwa about the use of recycled water in agriculture, and it's very strict. It has to be mixed with fresh water, both surface water and rainwater. So what happens is the wastewater treatment plant, the largest in Jordan, called Samra, which produces 70% of the treated wastewater in Jordan, transports its treated wastewater to a dam, the King Talal Dam, where it's mixed with the dam water, which is surface and rainwater, and then transported jointly to the Jordan Valley, where it's used in agriculture. So for sure, there's a law and there are regulations to make sure that the water is mixed, and hence, because of this and because of the fatwa, it's being accepted by the Jordanian public. However, there are concerns about the water quality, not so much because of pathogens, but more because of the high salinity of the water and hence the water quality, which is not always up to standards. So there are some technical issues, but the social acceptance is definitely there. And I think it would be worthwhile for other governments in the region and public debate to talk about this and under which circumstances the reuse of water is accepted for people in agriculture. And another thing is that so if the public acceptance is very low, which I can understand, using treated wastewater, reuse of water, could not be for crops that humans eat for human consumption, but for instance for animals or for landscaping, for trees. It can be used for fruit trees. It can be used for animal crop. It can be used for vegetables that need to be cooked first. So there are all sorts of gray areas in which governments, based on a dialogue with the public, can make agreements about how and under which circumstances they would like to use treated wastewater for agriculture. Thank you very much.
Another question before you go. The question is, how do we transfer the Dutch knowledge on water management and recycle to the MENA region, which obviously has different characteristics from the Netherlands?
That's, again, a very good question. Thank you very much. Well, the interesting thing is that I completely agree. We are definitely not an arid country, although we are experiencing droughts, as I mentioned. But of course, we're not an arid country. We're very different from Australia, for instance, which was mentioned as well, which has much more similarities with the aridity of the region. However, we do experiment. We have been experimenting in the Netherlands for decades now to optimize our water use in agriculture, and this is where we can help Jordan and other countries in the region to so the MENA region in general to work with changing water availability and water quality. Another example that I haven't mentioned is saline farming, for instance. So we're quite advanced in horticulture for saline soil, so salt resistant crops, climate resistant seeds, for instance. So we're doing quite a lot of research in this Wageningen University that I mentioned. So for us, it's not so much the water situation itself, but the combination of water and food production, that we have a lot of knowledge and expertise to share. And this is exactly what will be done in the Knowledge Innovation Center that I mentioned, that is being set up as we speak. So hopefully we can share, I mean, our intention is to share this with the whole region, and hopefully we can work with others in the region to actually make this happen. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot for your answers. There is a question, Aris, about the evaporation and the decreasing level, but the question actually exceeds my knowledge. So are you able to see it in the question and answer section? You will probably understand much more than myself.
So let's see. I am trying to find it. Okay, how it could be decrease the evaporation at the surface the same, but the level is decreased on the same time increasing. Okay, so I guess Mr. Marwa is asking that because I mentioned that in Ethiopia and Sudan there will be an increase in evaporation to the tune of maybe 1.4 and 1 billion cubic meters, and then there's decrease in Egypt. And she's making the assumption that how is it possible to be that way since the levels are the same? Well, the levels are not going to be the same. First of all, the GRD comes into the system, it's a new reservoir, it's going to increase, it's going to hit the surface. The evaporation rate up in Ethiopia is smaller, of course, than in Dam or in Sudan, but it still has a significant area and it will evaporate. So that's where the evaporation for Ethiopia happens. In Sudan, I mentioned that if the flow is uniform, it's going to help. There's no need for the Sudanese to operate the Osiris and the Senai with this very wild fluctuation they used to take advantage of the floods and all. So they can operate. The silt is going to stay up in Ethiopia, a lot of it, and therefore the operation is going to be level through the year at a higher level than before. So if you integrate evaporation through the year, you have more evaporation in Sudan. In Egypt, on the other hand, because of the losses upstream and because of the zero-sum game with respect to the water supply, the highest from dam is going to have to decrease the level. It's not going to stay the same. But this is why evaporation decreases, because the area of the highest from dam is going to decrease, and also energy is going to decrease because the head on the turbines is going to decrease. So that's the reason. This is how the system works if you model it properly.
Okay, thanks so much, Aris. I think we have a comment at the end for one of the participants. It's about the links and open channels among governments, private sector, entrepreneurs, and community-based organizations that requires clear frameworks and platforms that to guarantee actual opportunities and identify clear roles and achievable benefits. think this is a comment, and we thank the participant for his comment. I think this now we come at the end of our session. I would like to thank His Excellency, the Minister of Water Resources in South Sudan, for giving us the open speech for the session. I would like also to thank all the panelists for their presentation and speech. Very informative, very interesting. I would like to thank the Cairo Water Week organizers for holding the session, in particular the team Amr, Mona, and Mohammed. Thanks very much. I wish you all a good time and other sessions in the Cairo Water Week. Thanks very much, and hopefully see you next year at the 4th Cairo Water Week. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.